Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to make crispy kale chips in your oven with no oil. Tasty, tasty. But what I'm showing you here is how I store my greens when I get them home from the grocery store. This is an old vinegar jug, and what I do is when I get the vegetables home is I cut the bottoms off just like you do flowers, and I fill a little bit of water in there. See, there's water up to about here. And I put my greens in there, and it keeps it really, really crispy. It's like treating them like a good set of flowers, and it stays in my refrigerator. So I'm going to pause for a minute and do a couple steps, and then I'll show you what you need to do next. Okay, so this is a piece of kale, the deep, dark, curly, leafy ones that I like to make my kale chips out of. And what I do is I fold them in half, and then I take my knife and I score along the stem and pull any last little pieces off. And if anybody knows me, they know what I'm going to do. It's going to go on my juicing pile. Alright, so now I have 2 long leaves of kale, and we want to go ahead and get them clean. So what I have over here is my kitchen sink, and I throw my kale pieces. So this is about 2 bundles worth of kale. And the way I prepare my sink is I fill it to the rim with soapy, bleachy water and let it sit for probably 5 to 10 minutes. And then I drain it and wash it down and rinse it down. So the sink is sterilized before I do this. If this makes you feel uncomfortable, feel free to just use a big bowl or a bucket that you use for food products. But what happens is, as it sits in the water, the dirt sinks to the bottom of the sink and the greens float. So the next step is we don't want them to be quite so juicy when they go in the pan, so we need to do some salad spinner. So let me get my salad spinner and bring it over. Okay, I'm going to put some pieces in. Shake it off a bit, squeeze it some, which is okay. Put it in my salad spinner. Don't put too much. Okay, and we'll match it. Stop it, take it off, and then I take it over here to my pans, and I start to lay the pieces out. Okay. Let's see, it's trying to find a big one. Okay. And when you're laying them out, what you want to do is have them as close together without overlapping, and use as much of the foil as you can. See, here's a nice big piece, straight off of a leaf, you know, the full cut. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to rinse off my greens, spin them, and put them on the pan, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so now we have 2 very large cookie sheets that are covered in non-stick aluminum foil. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer so you can see that there is some moisture on there. What I'm going to do now is confirm that my oven is set for 275, and I'm going to take some salt, just a pinch of salt, because what you want to watch here is if you salt for the visual quantity, you're going to over salt. So you want to put enough salt on as if you were eating maybe a half a cup of cooked greens, so that gives you a sense of how much salt to put on. So I'm just going to very lightly salt, because what happens is the greens, they'll shrink down in size as they cook, and we want to make sure the salt's proportionate, because the salt's not going to shrink, just the greens. So let me pause for a second and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so before I put them in the oven, I want to show you just a view of how thick they are. Because the reason I'm doing this is I want you to get a visual on how they do flatten out quite a bit when they have. So it's about, they're about 1.5 inches tall on the sheet at this point in time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put them in my oven. You have to be very gentle because these things will fly off the pan into your oven in a heartbeat. Okay. First rack. My second rack. So it's about 2 spaces apart. So 1, 2. All right, we're gonna close the door. We're gonna set a timer for 15 minutes and we're gonna come back. Okay, so it has been 15 minutes and all I'm doing at this point is letting the steam out. You may think it looks like smoke, but it's steam. But I do want to go parallel and show you that they're not even 1/2 inch tall at this point. So that's all I wanted to do, was just let the steam out. I'm going to set the timer again for, let's see here, 15 minutes. Timer. Start. See you back in 15. Bye. Okay, so we're at the 30-minute spot, and what I do here is I just check to see if there's any crispies, and as you can hear, oh, that one's nope, it's still half soft. We want it to be completely crispy, like this side is partially crispy. So I'm just looking over to make sure we're doing okay. Like the edge of the ovens always get crispy first, so what I might do is move this guy to the middle and maybe a softer one to the edge. So I'm just going around. Again, that one's kind of partial, so we're going to move it into an area that's not quite on the edge. They're still very soft. The noise that you're hearing is actually more the foil. Okay, so this is at the 30-minute point. What I'm going to do here is probably flip a few over. That might help get some moisture. Spread about, but we want them to be as flat as possible. Actually, they look okay. It doesn't look like they need to be flipped. So, this was the top rack. This was the bottom rack. So I'm going to make this the top rack and this the bottom rack and set the timer for 15 and we'll be back. Okay, so we're at 45 minutes and what I want to point out is how much foil you actually see now, where before, if you go back to the beginning of the video, these things pretty much were crammed on the cookie sheet. So they do shrink a lot, which is why we want to be careful with the quantity of salt. So we're at 45 minutes, and so what I'm going to do is just look for any that are done. But this one is definitely done. It's crispy throughout. I'm going to put it in my bowl and just keep looking. This one's still a little soft. This has some softness to it, so we're going to keep it. And this one's crispy. Alright, this one's completely crispy. Gosh, this lighting is terrible with the foil. Crispy. Definitely if you see liquid on there, they're not ready. So, I'm just going to, let's see if I can just have a video high enough so I can, soft, I'm going to turn it over, soft. Soft. Part of it's crispy, so I'm going to try to take the crispy piece off. No, see, they're still a little soft. Those little pieces still a little soft. So it takes a while, but the reason why I take a long time to do these is I would rather do it slow than burn them, right? Alright, that piece is definitely done. Crack it off. The piece that's attached to it is not done. Into the bowl. Done. Soft. Most of the done ones are going to be closer to the edge because the edge of the stove is always hotter. Ooh, you can tell that one was done. Crunch! This one's partially done, so I'm going to break it apart. Okay, so what do I do with these? There you go, there's the crunchies. Alright, so I want to try to focus in on this one. Let's give it a second to focus. See the white little spots? That's your salt. So that, we just put a little on there. That's actually, to me, would feel like a lot on one piece. So that's why I'm very careful about my salt. Okay, let's let it get refocused again. There we go. Partially done. Alright, so that's what I do. I go through and I try to find the crispy ones because the last thing you want is burnt kale. And it looks like I might be able to condense these down into one tray. Make it a little easier to manage. Alright, so what I'm going to do is condense them to one tray and put them in for another 15. I'll be back. Alright. The final 15 leaves us with nothing but crispy. Crispy. Yay! So let's get them in our bowl. You want to put them in there very gently. So here we go. Let's see here if I can get a better picture. We have a nice dried kale, and I would say before we dried these, it probably would have been 3 of these bowls of kale. But very crispy, great on a savory type of yogurt or on top of maybe grilled fish, just as potato chips, which I actually use these instead of potato chips. Enjoy, and I'm glad I was able to do one video instead of a whole bunch of mini videos, and I will see you guys online. Bye.